The sky burned orange as Lieutenant Adam Rice fought the ship's failing controls, sweat dripping from his brow as the emergency alarm screamed in his ears. Fire danced across the cracked display, systems blinking out one by one. The moon below, a strange gray world wrapped in mist, offered no welcome, only jagged cliffs and ice-covered plains. There had been no time to send a proper distress call. Something had hit them in orbit, something fast and invisible, and now Adam was crashing alone into a place never charted on any map. When the ship finally slammed into the surface, it did so with a scream of metal and a cloud of smoke that rolled over the icy ground like a creeping fog. Silence followed. He coughed, shoved debris off his legs, and pulled himself free from the wreckage, half limping, half crawling into the cold air. The sky above shimmered with twin moons and purple clouds, eerie and beautiful. Every breath he took stung in his lungs, too thin, too dry, but barely breathable. He gathered the survival pack, sealed his helmet, and moved, knowing he couldn't stay near the crash site. Fires would draw attention, and in a place like this, attention could mean death. As he walked, the silence grew louder. No birds, no winds, just the crunch of his boots on the ice and the distant crack of settling rock. He walked for hours, searching for shelter before the long alien night fell. As the light dimmed, he found a narrow ravine with overhanging stone. Not perfect, but better than nothing. He set down the emergency beacon, opened the sleeping bag, and lit a low-heat thermal pad beneath the stone to hold some warmth. Then he heard a faint sound, almost like a whisper or a breath. He froze. Another sound followed. Soft. Rhythmic. It wasn't wind. It was footsteps. Something or someone was nearby. He slowly reached for the flare pistol, finger tightening around the trigger but didn't fire. From the darkness beyond the ravine, a figure stepped into view. At first, he thought it was a hallucination. It was a girl, or something close to one, tall, slim, glowing faintly blue under the moons. Her skin shimmered like starlight, and long silver strands of hair floated gently as if carried by unseen wind. She wore a strange wrap of fabric and armor plates that looked worn and ancient, almost ceremonial. Her eyes were large and deep violet, locked onto Adam's with a mix of curiosity and fear. He didn't speak. Neither did she. There was no need. Both knew the rules of survival. She looked cold, weak, and possibly wounded. Her breath came in short clouds, and her arms trembled as she held herself tightly. Adam slowly held up his hands, showing he meant no harm. Then he reached into his bag, pulled out the spare sleeping bag, and placed it near the fire pad, gesturing that she could take it. She stared at it, then at him. For a long moment, he thought she'd leave. But instead, she moved forward, step by careful step, eyes always watching. She knelt beside the sleeping bag, brushed her fingers over the fabric, and without a word slipped inside. Adam exhaled in relief. Maybe he'd saved her. Maybe they could both survive. He turned away to give her space, climbing into his own bag a short distance away. But just as he started to rest, he felt movement. The girl had risen and was walking toward him again. Confused, he sat up, and then she gently slid into his sleeping bag instead, curling up beside him without hesitation. His body stiffened, unsure of what to do. She was cold to the touch, but her heartbeat was strong. She didn't look at him, just settled in close, as if this was normal for her. He didn't push her away. The air was freezing, and their shared warmth was better than one. But still, something in the way she moved, in her silence, told him this wasn't just about temperature. She trusted him, or was desperate enough to try. They lay together in silence as the wind picked up outside, sending dust and fine ice rattling against the rock walls. The stars above shifted as hours passed, and he found his thoughts wandering. Who was she? How had she survived here? Was she native to this moon or left behind like him? He couldn't guess. He didn't even know if she could speak or understand language at all. But when her hand brushed his arm lightly in her sleep and her body pressed closer against the chill, he knew one thing: they weren't alone anymore. Whatever this place was, whatever had brought them both here, fate or something stranger had tied their paths together now. Adam didn't sleep much that first night. Even though the girl beside him had curled up peacefully, her presence kept his mind spinning. She was unlike anything he'd ever seen, alien, yet not threatening. When morning broke, soft light filtered through the rocks above, turning the air a dull gold. The girl stirred slowly, blinking at the sky, and then at Adam, her violet eyes calm but alert. She sat up and touched the sleeping bag's fabric again, almost like she was surprised it hadn't disappeared. Adam sat up too, carefully opening a food pack and showing her how it worked. She sniffed it, then took a tiny bite, clearly unsure. Still, she ate. A quiet peace settled between them for a few hours as they took turns warming themselves near the heat pad. Adam tried to speak to her short words, slow sentences, but she didn't respond. Not with words, at least. But she began mimicking some gestures, tapping her chest when he said Adam, and later pointing to herself and making a soft sound, something like Sirah. That was good enough for him. Sirah. It fit her. But as the second night approached, the air dropped fast. Adam had seen the weather reports on moons like this. Night was a deadly thing, temperatures far below freezing, winds sharp enough to cut exposed skin. He set up a stronger heat field using a power core salvaged from his pack and reinforced the rock wall with emergency shielding. Still, even with all that, the cold came in hard. The fire pad flickered. The thin metal tent lining shook under wind pressure. And again, just like before, Sirah crawled into the same sleeping bag as Adam without asking, wrapping herself around him with practiced ease. He didn't resist. Her body was colder this time, her breathing shallow at first, and he could feel how much she needed the warmth. This wasn't about comfort. It was survival. Her species couldn't hold heat like humans. She had evolved for a different kind of world, maybe a place where warmth came from the ground or the sky itself. Here, she had no chance alone. And somehow, she had known from the start that staying close to Adam, pressing against his skin, sharing heat was the only way to make it through the night. Outside, the wind screamed across the ravine, and ice dust seeped in through every tiny crack. But inside the bag, the warmth held. Adam could feel her heartbeat again, steady but faint. She didn't sleep much, and neither did he. But sometime during the long, dark hours, she reached out and touched the edge of his jacket, tugging at a small metal tag hanging from his zipper. She studied it like it meant something, her eyes thoughtful. Then she gently pressed her hand to his chest, right over his heart. Adam didn't know what she was trying to say, but somehow it felt important. A quiet message without language. You. Warmth. Life. That night, Adam realized something deeper. She wasn't just another survivor. She was watching him, learning. She wasn't helpless. She had instincts, intelligence, and perhaps even a reason for being out here. The moon hadn't chosen them both by chance. As dawn broke and the wind settled, Adam rose and looked out toward the horizon. In the distance, he saw dark shapes, ruins, maybe, or a buried structure half covered in frost. When he pointed, Sirah's entire posture changed. She stood faster than he expected, eyes wide. She knew that place. It meant something to her. Without waiting, she began walking toward it. Adam hesitated, then followed, the weight of survival replaced by something more powerful, the beginning of a mystery. Who was this girl, really? And what was waiting in the frozen shadows ahead? The wind was calmer on the third day, but the cold still cut deep. Adam followed Sirah across the icy plain, his boots crunching over frost, while the rising sun painted pale light over distant cliff. The ruins they had seen from afar now loomed, large, strange towers, cracked domes, and metal beams twisted like frozen vines. Time had broken this place, but it still pulsed with quiet energy. Sirah moved faster the closer they got, her steps filled with purpose. Her body still shivered with cold, but something pulled her forward, like memory or instinct. Adam kept his flare pistol ready, scanning for danger, though there was only silence, too much silence. The air felt heavier here. Static sometimes popped in his earpiece, and the scanner in his suit flickered without reason. This place had power, even in its broken state. Inside the ruins, the walls were etched with symbols, glowing faintly beneath layers of frost. Sira stopped in front of one and placed her hand against it. The symbol lit up instantly, and the ground beneath them gave a low hum. Adam stepped back, startled. She turned her head slowly and looked at him, not surprised, not scared. Almost relieved, like something long forgotten had finally responded to her touch. They explored deeper into the structure. Some rooms had collapsed, but others were still intact, preserved by alien tech. Strange machines lined the walls, devices Adam couldn't recognize. One room held a tall pillar surrounded by shattered glass. At its base was a control panel, now cracked and flickering. Sarah moved to it, fingers shaking as she traced the lines of the console. Adam watched closely, noticing how the symbols reacted to her presence. She wasn't just familiar with this place, she was connected to it. Somehow, her body, her energy, matched the design. Maybe her people had built this station long ago, or maybe she was part of something more ancient than he could imagine. As she worked, the pillars sparked to life, sending out a faint pulse of light that rippled through the floor. Adam's comlink lit up briefly. Something was broadcasting. He tuned in, hearing static mixed with strange tones. It wasn't human language, but it wasn't random either. A message. A signal. She had activated something. Hope rose in his chest. Maybe they could call for help. Maybe they could survive. But the moment of peace didn't last. From the far end of the corridor, a mechanical sound echoed sharp, cold, and wrong. Adam turned, heart racing. A drone hovered into view, black metal shining, its limbs sharp like blades. It didn't look like it had been made by her people. It looked like a machine built for war. The drone scanned the room, then locked onto Adam with a high-pitched tone. It moved fast, faster than he expected, firing a warning beam that scorched the wall near his head. Adam rolled to cover, pulling Sira down with him. She cried out, holding her arm where the beam had grazed her. Adam didn't hesitate. He fired the flare pistol. The bright flash struck the drone's lens, blinding it for a second, enough time to dive behind a broken console. But before he could reload, the drone adjusted and aimed again. Then something unexpected happened. Sira stepped forward, her hand glowing faintly with that same blue light from before. She raised it, and the drone froze. Its lights flickered. It twitched. Then it dropped to the ground, dead. Adam stared, breathing hard. Sarai swayed on her feet, exhausted but still standing. The glow faded from her skin, but he had seen it clearly. This time energy had flowed through her like living electricity. She wasn't just a survivor. She was tied to this place in a way that made the machines respond. This wasn't about warmth anymore. This was something far bigger. She turned to Adam, her expression serious. Whatever this facility was, it hadn't just been a shelter. It was a beacon. A message hub. Maybe even a weapon. And now that it was awake, they weren't alone anymore. Something ancient had been watching, and it had just seen them move. The ruined hall was silent after the drone fell, but Adam could still feel the weight in the air, the hum of power under the floor, the distant echo of something awaking deep below. Sira stood still, her hand trembling, blue light fading from her skin like a breath slipping away. She looked drained but alert, eyes locked on the center of the room where the signal pillar now pulsed steadily. Adam walked over and touched her shoulder gently, asking if she was all right, even though she wouldn't understand his words. But she looked up and nodded slowly. Then she stepped toward the pillar and placed both hands on it. Her skin began to glow again, faintly this time, but enough to activate another sequence. One of the walls slid open, revealing a hidden chamber filled with floating panels, symbols, and ancient alien machines that still pulsed with slow, steady light. It was more than a ruin. It was a control center. A beacon to the stars. Sira entered first, walking toward a central console shaped like a starburst, her movements almost instinctual now. She didn't need to study the controls. She knew them. Her fingers moved across the surface like she had done this before, long ago in another life. And then the room responded not just with lights, but with a soft projection, an image of stars, planets, and glowing paths that stretched across space. Adam watched, stunned, as the hologram zoomed in on a distant system, one he didn't recognize. Then came images of tall beings like Sarah, standing in shining towers above green oceans and golden skies. But the images changed quickly. Fires, war, machines falling from the sky, people running. A signal breaking. Silence. Sarah turned toward Adam and pointed at herself, then the stars, then the ruins. Her expression said what words could not. She was the last. The final piece of a civilization wiped out by something they didn't understand. She was not just a survivor. She was a carrier of memory, of technology, and maybe even a key. The beacon was not just calling out, it was searching, trying to reconnect a lost signal across the galaxy. Adam realized with a chill that the drone that attacked them wasn't a defense system. It was part of the enemy, something old and still active, buried deep in the ruins like a disease waiting to wake. Sarah had stopped it using something within her, some genetic link to the old technology, but it had drained her. She wasn't invincible. She was powerful, but vulnerable, and now she had used that last bit of strength to send out a signal again, this time reaching both her people, wherever they might be, and Earth's network. As the signal shot into the sky like a beam of blue flame, the beacon tower began to rumble. Deep beneath the floor, metal groaned. A second machine was waking up bigger, faster, and angry. Sarah stumbled back, breathing hard, and Adam caught her before she fell. He helped her back toward the surface, moving quickly as the ground began to shake. In the sky, a soft light flickered. One of Adam's distress signals had been picked up. His team might finally be on their way. But that also meant something else might be coming too. He looked down at Sarah, who had curled against him again as they reached shelter, her skin cool and glowing faintly like starlight. She had given everything to send that signal. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her close, knowing the night ahead wouldn't just be cold, it would be the start of a fight far bigger than either of them expected. But Adam also knew something else. This girl, this alien survivor, wasn't just part of a forgotten race. She was the last of a legacy, the last spark of something that had once reached the stars. And now, with humanity here, that legacy might not be lost forever. The sky burned again, but this time it wasn't fire from a crash. It was light from the heavens, streaks of silver cutting through the clouds like blades of hope. Adam stood on the highest ridge of the frozen ruins, watching dropships descend through the mist, their engines humming like distant thunder. Behind him, the alien beacon still glowed, but its light was softer now, steady, as if it had done what it was meant to do. Sarah leaned against the stone wall nearby, wrapped in one of Adam's thermal blankets, her body weak but healing. She had grown even quieter after the signal was sent, but her eyes were sharp, always watching, always listening. The ancient machines in the ruins had gone silent again, but Adam knew that was temporary. Something old had been stirred. The signal they had sent reached Earth, but it had also echoed through the dark corners of the galaxy. Something was coming. Humanity had heard the call, and so had others. The first dropship landed with a hiss of steam, and soldiers in white armor spread out in careful formation, weapons ready but lowered when they saw Adam. One of the officers, Commander Ray, ran to him, pulling off her helmet with wide eyes. "We thought you were dead," she said, but Adam only shook his head and pointed toward Sarah. "I would have been, but I wasn't alone." When Ray saw Sarah, her face changed. Confusion, caution, then awe. Sarah stood, thin and pale but proud, and nodded at the commander as if she understood everything, even without the words. She didn't flinch, didn't hide. She was done hiding. The medics checked Adam's wounds and began scanning Sarah. Something stirred beneath the ruins again, a low rumble, like thunder under the ice. A signal pulsed from the beacon one final time, smaller but sharper, like a heartbeat. The machines weren't done. A second wave of drones, faster, more advanced, was coming. Ray shouted for the team to prepare defenses, but Adam stepped forward. "No," he said firmly. "She stopped one before. She can stop more. But she needs help." Sarah turned to him, eyes full of unspoken emotion, and then, without warning, she reached out and took his hand. In that moment, Something passed between them, not words, not language, but connection. The machines that had once obeyed her ancestors were still listening, still waiting. With Adam at her side, something changed. A fusion of human will and alien code. The light from the beacon twisted upward into a shield, blocking the drones as they broke through the sky. The battle that might have come never did. The machines froze in the air, caught in the signal, and then slowly turned back, their aggression neutralized. They recognized her. And now they recognized him too. Humanity wasn't an enemy. It was an heir. Later, as the sun began to rise on the frozen moon, Adam sat beside Sarah at the edge of the ravine where it had all started. The place where they first shared warmth. She no longer trembled with cold. Her skin glowed quietly, no longer in fear, but in peace. "You saved me," he whispered. Sarah tilted her head, and then, for the first time, she spoke, her voice quiet and strange, but clear. "We saved each other." And in that moment, they hadn't just sent a message across the stars. They had proven something no machine, no ancient weapon, no buried empire ever could. That even across galaxies, across fear and silence and war, connection was still possible. Humanity had responded. And because of it, hope had returned to the stars.